Today, we're going to talk about One Piece episode 1151. And I have to say, it was an absolutely incredible episode that completely shifted the tone of the Egghead arc, both emotionally and narratively. With Bonnie's free future form, Luffy returning to his Nika state, and Emet awakening, the fuse for the final saga of One Piece has officially been lit. If you're ready, let's dive into the episode together. Before we get into the details, YouTube hasn't been recommending videos as much lately and views have dropped significantly. That's why even a single like or comment helps the video reach more people in a huge way. So please like the video, leave a comment, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you in advance, let's get started. One Piece anime episode 1151 is the irreversible breaking point of the Egghead arc. Even the title, Her and Her Father's Dream, Bonnie's Free Future, summarizes the two main pillars of the episode. Bonnie's long-suppressed desire for freedom finally erupting, and Luffy shifting back into Gear 5, completely changing the pace of the scene. As we get closer to the end of Egghead, this episode raises the stakes both emotionally and action-wise, and Oda finally locks in some thematic threads he's been building toward for a long time. At the center of the episode is Bonnie's transformation, powered by the least understood but most potent aspect of the Toshi, the Distorted Future ability. For years we thought the fruit only changed age, but with Egghead we learn that Bonney can actually transform into a possible future version of herself. That future doesn't have to obey physics, meaning she can embody a form that could exist but doesn't currently. That's why evolving into a Nika-like free future form logically makes sense. It's important to emphasize that this transformation didn't appear out of nowhere. In Kuma's flashback, we saw little Bonney throwing a massive Nika-like punch at Alpha. Even back then, Oda was hinting at the fruit's future-based potential. So Bonnie's transformation in episode 1151 isn't a retcon. It's the peak of a motif Oda has been slowly building. His narrative consistency becomes much clearer in this episode. The technical explanation of her transformation is directly tied to the freedom energy she felt from Luffy. After seeing Luffy's Nika form up close, Bonney amplifies the distorted future technique of the Toshi no Mi into the future where I'm most free. Her hair whitening, eyebrows curling, and movement style becoming more cartoon-like are all reflections of this chosen future. The important distinction is this: Bonney is not a real Nika. She does not possess the Zoan model Nika fruit. She is only manifesting a future possibility of herself. That's why the community calls her Joy Girl, but this is thematic, not literal. And most importantly, this power is not sustainable. Bonnie's form collapses very quickly, and she even says herself that freedom is exhausting. This beautifully reflects both the limits of the fruit and her emotional fragility. Bonney is not a second Nika fighting alongside Luffy. She's someone who briefly experiences freedom through his rhythm. This makes the scene far more emotional and thematic rather than just a power-up showcase. In the overall flow of the episode, Luffy returning to Gear 5 cuts through the atmosphere like a knife. After boarding the Elbaf Giant's ship in a completely exhausted state, the pressure on the crew increases. But within seconds, Luffy recovers and picks up the Drums of Liberation rhythm again, instantly shifting the entire tone. The moment you hear that rhythm, the tension on Egghead jumps to another level. It gives you that exact feeling of things just got real. The animation team uses rhythm and visual dynamism extremely well in this comeback scene. On the Elder's side, Mars and Warcury's overwhelming pressure keeps the tension high. Mars attacking the ship from the sky and Warcury becoming a threat large enough to crush the island gives the sense that the crew is seconds from death. In this chaos, Luffy's battle strategy taking shape is one of the episode's strongest elements. Luffy's Nika form is not just raw strength, it has become a strategic battle style fused with intuition and creativity. The pacing of the episode is much more balanced than some earlier Egghead entries. The action, emotion, and scene transitions feel naturally connected. Especially after Luffy transforms into Nika, the flow becomes noticeably smoother. Because the animation follows the rhythm of the Drums of Liberation, no scene drags on and no important moment feels rushed. This balance makes 1151 one of the best executed episodes of the arc. Bonnie's transformation is the emotional peak of this section. Her being swept up in Luffy's rhythm, questioning why can't I be as free as him? Luffy giving her encouragement and Bonney choosing her own free future. It all directly serves her character development. The key point is that this transformation isn't for battle. It's for her inner realization. Bonney's brief contribution helps Luffy break the pressure, but the form collapsing quickly makes it clear this isn't a sustainable combat ability. The animation quality is one of the standout aspects of 1151. The cartoon physics, bursts of light, and fluid movement during Bonney's transformation fit beautifully with the Gear 5 aesthetic. Luffy's rhythmic motion, Bonney's free future visuals, and the dramatic pacing raise the visual quality significantly. Because this visual quality supports the pacing, 1151 becomes a technically strong episode as well as a narratively strong one. Emet's Awakening deepens not just the action but also the mythological layer of the episode. The ancient Iron Giant responding to the freedom energy released by Luffy and Bonney shows that the Nika legend is no longer just a story, it's a real force. Vegapunk previously implied that this robot could respond to Nika's call, and 1151 finally solidifies that mystery. As the robot slowly stands up, the scene transforms into a historic moment. The way Emet's design is presented is also striking. We're seeing a giant machine whose visual weight is matched by its historical significance. When Emet says, "Here," it proves that Nika's energy leaves a resonance on conscious beings. This isn't just an extension of Luffy's power, it establishes Joy Boy's voice as an ancient vibration woven into the world itself. Oda progressing the mythology this organically makes the episode even more valuable. On the world-building side, Vegapunk's broadcast plays a major role. This broadcast marks the first time the world government's decades-long secrets are broken on a global scale. It's not just the characters on Egghead. Familiar faces around the world watching the broadcast raises the scale to almost Marineford levels. Vivi's concern, Morgan's excitement, Big Mom's family reacting. These scenes show this is no longer a simple island conflict, but the beginning of a crisis affecting the entire One Piece world. This global crisis feeling becomes especially important. Egghead has always been built around forbidden knowledge, ancient history, and critical information. But with episode 1151, that knot finally begins to unravel publicly. Every statement Vegapunk makes removes another brick from the world government's wall, showing that the story is moving into a much broader political space. In this sense, 1151 is not just a transformation or battle episode, it's a geopolitical turning point in One Piece's final saga. Despite this expanding scale, the thing that impressed me the most is how episode 1151 carries action, emotion, and lore all at once. Luffy's Gear 5 energy gives rhythm. Bonney's transformation provides emotional focus, and Emet's Awakening expands the mythos. Balancing all three in one episode is incredibly difficult, but Egghead's approaching finale is handled with impressive harmony here. That's what makes 1151 the core episode of the arc. When focusing on Egghead's battle, one of 1151's strongest points is that Luffy uses Gear 5 not just as a spectacle, but as a strategic weapon. Luffy turning himself into a giant balloon, thinning fire, and redirecting the attack proves that Gear 5's cartoon physics operate with intention, not randomness. The scene is funny, serious, and clever at the same time. Oda uses the Nika power not as a power fantasy, but as a reflection of free thinking. Luffy's battle intelligence shines in this form. This plan only works because of the Straw Hat dynamic. Luffy shouting, "Hit me with everything you've got," shows the trust within the crew and the collective nature of the fight. Sanji delivering heavy blows without hesitation, Frankie adding mechanical force, and Bonney briefly boosting Luffy with her free future form all illustrate strong teamwork. Bonney's contribution is small but symbolic. It speeds Luffy up and reminds us how exhausted she is. Luffy launching Mars is the action climax of the episode. Considering how overwhelmingly strong the Elders are, Luffy breaking that pressure using creativity shows the battle-changing potential of Gear 5. Mars being hurled toward the horizon isn't just a physical achievement, it's the manifestation of Nika's ability to direct freedom. But even this victory isn't final. The Elders remain an enormous threat. The episode makes it clear the fight is far from over. The short duration of Bonney's transformation adds both realism and emotional weight. The moment she says freedom is exhausting, she delivers the thematic core of the episode. Bonney doesn't use the form for a power fantasy. She uses it to face her past and touch her father's dream for just a moment. The brief duration shows she's still fragile. This prevents her from becoming a second Nika and keeps her as an independent character with her own journey. What deserves the most praise is how the episode maintains power balance. No matter how impressive Gear 5 is, the Elders still feel unbeatable. Even with Luffy momentarily removing Mars, the threat doesn't evaporate. Oda does something very important here. He lets Luffy shine without diminishing the enemy. This preserves the tension heading toward the finale of Egghead. Bonney's transformation, regardless of the battle's outcome, holds immense value for her character development. Even though it's a short boost, it clearly shows who Bonney is and who she wants to become. Someone reaching for freedom, but also acknowledging its weight. For Bonney, resembling Nika isn't about power. It's a symbolic way of confronting trauma and continuing her father's dream. That's why her collapse isn't a defeat, but the beginning of something new. Luffy's fighting style is essentially a reflection of his ideology of freedom. Gear 5 is no longer just a rubber body or limitless mobility. It's a state where thought reshapes physics, where freedom directly influences combat. His mastery of this form in 1151 shows that he's fully aligned with the Nika power. His laughter, rhythm, carefree attitude, and creativity are what shift the battlefield. This is a powerful message for the final saga. As for where Egghead is heading, 1151 draws a very clear path. The Elders are still standing, Emet has awakened, and Vegapunk's broadcast continues shaking the world. This arc has evolved into a massive historical and political rupture. Everything that happens here shows the Straw Hats directly confronting the world government's darkest secrets. Egghead is no longer just an island battle, it's the start of the final saga. Moreover, one of the biggest points shown in this episode is this. The world has now seen the power of Nika. This completely changes Luffy's destiny. He's no longer just a figure admired among pirates, he is now a symbol noticed by giants, ancient machines, and people across the entire world. Joy Boy's voice being heard, Emet awakening, and people reacting to the broadcast all show that the Nika legend has gained global significance. This strongly signals the theme of the final saga. The world's fate is changing. So friends, what do you think about Bonney's free future form? Do you think this power will appear again later, or was it just a momentary burst? Will Luffy's Gear 5 be enough for the final of this arc? And most importantly, what kind of door will Emet's awakening open in the final saga? I'm curious about your thoughts. YouTube hasn't been recommending videos as much lately, and views have dropped significantly. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. See you in the next one.